I see Jalen, Carly, Miss Cabrera Leon. Thank y'all for joining in tonight. Thank you, Miss Carmichael. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. And you can go ahead and get ready. Would you like to address the group before I get started? Any deadlines or anything else you'd like to know today?
I see we have 4 right now. So I've been sending out reminders in our Remind group. So guys, just make sure if you haven't already, please make sure to go ahead and start your FAFSA. If you have questions, you can ask Ms. Carmichael tonight. You can also ask me, just send me a message and remind. You can email me. We can do it over the phone. We are both here to help you guys. So just let us know what you need and how we can support you. Once you do complete it, if you've completed it already, I need the confirmation page. So just let me know when you've completed it, and then I will make sure you have my email address, and then you guys will forward that confirmation to me. But before we start, did anybody have any questions for me really quick? I don't see okay, I see the chat box. So y'all please make sure just type in the chat box if y'all have any questions during the presentation. Don't be shy.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and get started. All right, I'm Ann Carmichael, and I'm a student financial aid consultant with Leela, and I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I'm here to support you through the process. So hopefully at the end of the presentation, you'll have a better understanding of the student financial aid process. And I know your counselor has already told you that the Louisiana Department of Education asks that the class of 2021 submit the FAFSA as a requirement for graduation. And this simply ensures that your money is ready and waiting for you when you begin college this fall. Now, because college can be expensive, it's time to start thinking about and preparing for those costs, which include equipment, books, and supplies like your textbooks, notebooks, a computer if you need one, personal expenses like your phone bill, money to do your laundry if you're living away from home, fuel for your car to go back and forth to campus, and food purchases outside of your meal plan. Room and board, which could include a dorm room or an apartment if you're living off campus. And if you are in an apartment, then you have to start thinking about your electricity and water and gas, your groceries and your cleaning supplies. And then the largest portion is your tuition and fees. Now, when you do your research on your college's websites, they will most often report their tuition for an academic year, but just keep in mind that there are additional fees and expenses included. But the good news is that financial aid is available from the U.S. Department of Education, the state of Louisiana in the form of the TOPS scholarship, your colleges and career schools, and then nonprofit and private organizations like Leela. Every year, the federal government provides more than $120 billion in federal student aid. So we just want to make sure that you have your portion and that it's ready and waiting for you when you do enter college. Types of federal student aid include the federal Pell Grant, the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teacher Educational Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, and then direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. also there's federal work study available. Now, federal student aid grants are a form of financial aid that does not have to be repaid. So you always want to accept any grants that you're offered. And these grants include the Pell Grant, which is for undergraduate students with financial need, FSEOGs for undergraduates with exceptional financial need, service grants for students of military parents who died defending the country following 9/11, and then teach grants for students pursuing a teaching career. The Federal Work Study Program provides part-time jobs to help pay for your education expenses. Now, these jobs could be in the library, in the athletic department, in the colleges that you're studying in, perhaps a departmental job. But when you let the financial aid office know that you're interested in federal work study, they're going to consider you for the program. If you select, yes, I'm interested in federal work study on your FAFSA, they will begin to contact you directly and make offers to you. You're not obligated to accept the positions, but they do know to offer them to you when they become available. Any money you earn through the federal work study program goes directly into your pocket and should be used to pay for your miscellaneous college expenses. Now, just to touch on student loans, the direct subsidized loan is based on financial need, and no interest is charged while the student is in school. But the unsubsidized loans are offered to everyone, and they are offered regardless of financial need, but the interest on this type of loan does begin to accrue while you're in school. So if you do have to accept student loans, you want to make sure that you are selecting the subsidized portion first, because you can see that there is a big difference between the sub and the unsub loan. And you can remind yourself of this when you start to get your financial aid offers by telling yourself that the U in unsubsidized means that you always pay the interest on those loans. Now, if you're offered student loans, please accept the federal student loans first, because payments are not due until you graduate or cease to attend. The interest rate is fixed at a lower rate, and no credit check is required. This loan is in your name as the student. It also helps you build credit while you're still in school. On the other hand, the private loans should be accepted only as needed, because most require that payments be made while you're still in school. The interest rate might be variable, and it's often a much higher rate, and they almost always require a cosigner. So to dispel the myth, almost everyone is eligible for some type of federal student aid. And all federal student aid and almost all institutional and private aid is contingent upon completion of the pre-application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, which launches on October 1st of each year. Now, student financial aid is awarded on a first-come, first-served basis, so it's important to get it submitted as soon as possible. Because we've already been alerted that more than 1 million FAFSAs have already been submitted for next academic year. So get to the head of the line while the money is still available, so that you will be offered the maximum award that you're eligible to receive. Now, you'll want to remember to pay close attention to your FAFSA deadlines. Each college financial aid office is going to have a priority financial aid deadline. The TOPS scholarship has a FAFSA deadline, if you didn't already know that. And Your counselor and school district might have a deadline to meet your graduation requirements. So make sure you are keeping all of that in mind. Now you'll want to begin the process by collecting all of the documents you need to complete the form. We've been told that students who have everything together can finish it in one sitting in about 20 minutes. So be sure that you have your Social Security card for the student and the parents, the 2019 federal income tax returns for students and parents if they submitted a return for that tax year, your W-2s, because there could be information here that's not printed on your return, and then bank statements and records of investments, because you're going to be asked to report your balances as of the date that you submit the FAFSA. Now you want to start this process by creating a federal student aid
Hey, I'm
ID
just cooking
or
a minute.
an
Damn, they
FSA
need it
ID.
as
Oh, make sure everybody has their
Crawfish,
video
HGK,
on
and
mute, please, so
zucchini
we
and
can all
rice.
hear.
What is zucchini?
No,
So you finna start eating.
the federal
finna start
student
having
aid
healthy choices
ID
around
is
here.
important because it allows students and parents to
Yeah,
identify
like
themselves
asparagus. That's what. But you, I'm
electronically
sorry, replace
when
it.
accessing federal student aid websites.
I don't eat that much. I stopped doing that. I eat regular. Like I
Each
eat.
student and one
Well,
of
we
his
finna even
parents
start eating.
should
See all that
receive
water
an
we got?
ID by
We finna
visiting
start. Guess what? We finna supposed to start walking as a family.
fsaid.ed.gov.
Yeah. Yes, we finna start
Now,
doing
only
that.
your email address and
Oh yeah,
phone
we
number
are.
should be listed in your FSA ID.
What?
No, but it's more.
Health is wealth. Remember that.
So parents, you will
Yep.
be using the exact same website to create your federal
Jacoby, you
student
supposed
aid
to be on this
ID.
Zoom.
Oh my God, lady. I guess you don't know that.
So your ID is going to consist of a username and password that is created just by you using your personal information. Make sure you're not sharing this information with anyone else. Don't use mom or dad's mobile phone, use your own. Students, if you don't already have a personal email address, now's the time to create one. You don't want to use your school email because federal student aid will not have any way to get in touch with you once you graduate. Remember that your FSA ID is legally binding and it is your official electronic signature. You're going to need this every year that you submit a FAFSA, so make sure you're recording it and keeping it in a safe place. Now, if you don't have access to a computer when you're ready to get started on your FAFSA, you can always download the FAFSA mobile app, and it's called My Student Aid, and you can use it to submit your FAFSA on your mobile device or on any other or on your mobile phone or any other device that has internet access. Or if you prefer, you can complete it on the web-based version at FAFSA.gov. Now, if you wanted to get started on your mobile device and then you wanted to finish up on the web-based version, then that's fine. Everything will be compiled into one FAFSA when it's time to sign and submit. Now you want to begin the FAFSA by logging in with the student's FSA ID because the FAFSA is the student's application for federal student aid. The parent FSA ID is going to be used later in the form if you choose to transfer your tax information from the IRS into the FAFSA, and then again to sign the student's FAFSA. The high school class of 2021 should be completing the 2021-2022 FAFSA because that's the academic year that you're applying for financial aid. So you're going to be given two options. The 2020-2021 FAFSA is for students who are in college during this academic year. You're going to find that there are 8 sections that need to be completed before you submit your FAFSA. And those include the student demographics, where the student will be asked to report his social security number, name, date of birth, personal email address, residency status, and gender. The school selection, where the student should report the name of his high school, the colleges that he wants his FAFSA data to be sent to, and his housing plans on each of those campuses. Next is the dependency status section, where you'll be asked to consider a list of 10 questions to determine whether you're a dependent or an independent student. They'll want to know the number of dependents living in your household and your parents' education. And often parents will question why they're being asked their level of education. But it's because there could be additional financial aid available for first-generation college students. So please consider that when answering this question. Then you'll move to the parent demographic section, where parents will report their social security numbers, their marital status, and email address. Then you're moving into the financial section. There's one for the parent and one for the student. And this is where you'll report your 2019 working wages, if you earned any. You'll report any federal benefits you received and list your savings and investment balances. And then it's time to sign and submit the FAFSA. After you do, you're going to receive confirmation that it was done. And remember that your counselor will like that confirmation sent directly to her, so she can mark you clear for graduation. But as you move through the FAFSA, if you have a question about a question, look all the way over to the right-hand side and you'll see a question mark. Click on that question mark at any time if you want a more detailed description. There are also hyperlinks throughout the FAFSA if you want to get a definition of some of the terms that they use. You can request a FAFSA online chat. You can call Federal Student Aid or LELA's FAFSA helpline. But for this session, I'm only going to cover the most commonly asked FAFSA questions. If you have one that I don't address, just drop it in the chat box below and I'll answer those once we get to the end. I'll also provide you with my email address if you want to communicate with me directly. One commonly asked question is about citizenship. Students must be citizens or eligible non-citizens to complete a FAFSA. Now, if you think you could be an eligible non-citizen, there is a hyperlink provided here where you can get more details about that. If you are a citizen or eligible non-citizen, but your parents are not, that's fine. You can submit a FAFSA. You'll just enter zeros anywhere a parent's social security number is asked for. Now, young men between the ages of 18 and 26 must be registered with Selective Service to receive federal student aid. If you haven't already done so, guys, you can register within the FAFSA. It's a FAFSA question. Even if you're not 18, you can select yes, register me with Selective Service, and you'll be registered as of the date that you turn 18. This is optional. If you choose to pay out of pocket for your college expenses, then you can skip the Selective Service question. Now, only the colleges that you list on your FAFSA in the school selection section are going to consider you for federal student aid. So make sure that you are adding all of the schools that you're considering. They're not going to automatically send all your personal and financial information to all colleges around the country. You have to give them permission. And you can add up to 10 colleges each time you submit your FAFSA. If you're planning to apply to more than 10, Just follow these instructions listed in the school selection section. Now, to determine whether you need to provide parental information, you need to consider these 10 questions. And if you have questions when you're going through this section of the FAFSA, please feel free to contact your counselor or to contact me so that we can clarify that. But if you are considered an independent student and you can answer yes to one of those questions, then you will not have to provide information about your parents. But if you can't answer one of those 10 questions and you're still considered dependent, you can contact the financial aid office individually and work with them to work through your situation. Say you live on your own and you file your own taxes, but you couldn't answer one of the 10 questions. You can work with them perhaps to consider you for additional financial aid. The number one question that we are asked when students are working through their FAFSAs is, which parents do I report on my FAFSA? And as a rule of thumb, the parent or parents that you've lived with the longest in the past 12 months should be listed on your FAFSA. So if you live with both of your biological parents, then that's easy. You'll just list both of them. But if the biological parent that you lived with the longest in the past 12 months is separated, divorced, or was never married, you should list only that parent on the FAFSA. However, if that parent is now remarried, then you should list that step parent as well. In other words, federal student aid wants to know the financial standing of the household that the student has lived in the longest in the 12 months prior to the date that the FAFSA was submitted. Now, as I mentioned, if you're identified as a dependent student, but you cannot provide parental information, perhaps your parents refuse to provide you with that info, you can submit a FAFSA stating that you're unable to provide their information, but you must contact the financial aid office to let them know what your situation is. If you don't, you're only going to be offered federal student loans. Now, when you go over into the financial sections, if you filed a tax return in 2019, it's best to use the IRS data retrieval tool. This makes sure that your information is correct and that the financial aid office doesn't have to ask you later to contact the IRS to provide a tax transcript. If you choose this process, you will be taken directly into the Internal Revenue website. You'll grab your 2019 federal tax returns and you will enter your information exactly as it's printed on that return. So even if you've moved or your name was misspelled, whatever it is, your tax return information has to be entered exactly like this into the IRS site. And then you're almost finished with your FAFSA. But before submitting, you want to make sure you're reviewing your student aid report so that the financial aid office has accurate information. Then it's time to sign, and you can see this is where you're asked to electronically sign with your FSA ID. There's a section for the student's electronic signature, and one parent must sign. This is the parent who created an ID as well. Once you submit your FAFSA, you will automatically see the confirmation page pop up. Now, although you're going to receive an email stating that you successfully submitted your FAFSA, this is the only time you're going to get this much detail. So print a copy of it or take a screenshot of it for future reference, because you're going to see here the next steps that you need to take to complete the process. You'll see a list of the colleges that are going to receive your FAFSA information, and you can consider your financial aid estimates. And I'm going to emphasize the word estimate because this information was compiled with the manual answers you gave in the FAFSA. The financial aid office then has to verify everything. And your financial aid offer is going to come from the financial aid office, not from federal student aid. Now, if you begin a FAFSA and you have to put it off until later to submit, you will receive communications from federal student aid. You have 45 days to complete the FAFSA before it's wiped off of their system. So remember to get it submitted as soon as possible. Now, if you find that you need to make a correction to your FAFSA, it's best to go to the FAFSA.gov website and log back in. Say you want to add a new school or your financial aid office asks you to make a correction. You can do so at that time, but you must sign and submit your FAFSA each time you go in and make a correction. And once it's fully processed, it's then shared with your colleges. The colleges at that time are going to begin to identify any financial aid that you might be eligible to receive on their campus. Now, if your family's financial situation has changed since 2019, and we know we're going to see a lot of this across the country, and especially in Louisiana with all of the storms that have impacted our whole state, please contact your financial aid office because they might have additional money, free money available to help you finish out your academic year. Remember that this is your responsibility. They're not going to contact everybody in the state and say, hey, do you need some additional money? Don't be shy and contact them directly about your family's situation. They can make adjustments to your estimates. But they will begin to determine the net price of your academic year. And they'll do that by taking the cost of attendance at their college, subtracting any grants and scholarships they've been able to identify that you're eligible for. And this will be your net price. This is the dollar amount that you're responsible for paying. You can pay with cash or accept student loans to pay that balance. Now, it's important to note that you will receive a financial aid offer from every college that you list on your FAFSA. But some colleges are going to wait until you finish the admissions process. So be sure you're also completing your applications for admissions. But each college will tell you in writing their cost of attendance, any grants, any scholarships, any work study or student loans they can offer you. And that way you can get an idea of the net price of each of the colleges. Once you do make your decision, you'll want to accept your financial aid office offer by accepting any grants and scholarships first. This is gift aid and it doesn't have to be repaid. Federal work study, second, because this is earned money. You've already earned it, so you don't have to pay it back. And then student loans, because this money is borrowed and you have to repay it with interest. This is a lot of information for you all to digest tonight. So Leela, again this year, published our FAFSA completion guide, and it's free for all Louisiana high school seniors. So if you haven't already received yours, please contact your counselor, or you can contact me directly and I will leave my contact information for you at the end of the presentation. And I'll also include Leela's senior checklist to help you stay on track and be ready for college this fall. Now, scholarships are gift aid, and I know your counselor has talked to you about these, and they're offered by your colleges, by your parents' employers, community groups, and religious organizations. Some are based on your academic achievement, but some are financially based as well. So a scholarship might cover your entire cost of tuition, or it could be a one-time award. But either way, it's worth applying for because it's going to eventually reduce the cost of your education, which will reduce your student loan debt. You can find out more about scholarships from your high school counselor, from your college financial aid office, from your admissions recruiters. So ask each one of those resources. This year, we're offering a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship, and it's for every Louisiana high school student that has completed a FAFSA. You're all eligible to enter, and you can find out the details at lila.org. Then once you're in a Louisiana college, you can apply for our Choose Louisiana Scholarship. It's also a $1,000 award, and that application is on our website as well. Now, for those of you who are going to pricier colleges and you've exhausted all your federal and state dollars and your grants and scholarships, Lila does administer, oh, somebody's joining us. Lila does administer a nonprofit student loan program. It's called Lila Choice, and here are the details at lilachoice.org. So now is the time to answer your ask your questions, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. But first, I want to make sure that I have given you my contact information. Here's our helpline number and also my email address if you want to speak to me individually. I'm going to go and check the chat box. If anybody wants to ask a question or wants to talk about their experience with the FAFSA, I'll be happy to entertain those questions tonight.
And just real quick, Ms. Carmichael, before everyone leaves, that information you were just talking about, that guide, I posted it on our school website. So if you go to lccp.us, you'll search under staff, faculty and staff, and then scroll down to my name and picture. Click on that and you'll see a lot of information with updated scholarships, FAFSA guides, and a lot of other good information. So make sure you guys check the website and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, and I don't see anything in the chat box, so I'm going to assume that you'll be contacting us if you need help. So thank you all so much for having me this evening. I really enjoyed the group.
Thank you again, Ms. Carmichael, and thank you guys for joining in. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.